Hello everyone, I'm Sid and I'm back with another review. Today I would be reviewing the much awaited Moto G4 Plus. Now I'm assuming that you are already familiar with the Moto G series. It was the first budget segment phone that Motorola launched and it saved a dying brand name. And more importantly, it shifted focus of other top players to this price segment. But those are bygones. For now, the market realities have changed completely. There are Chinese brands who are ousting powerful devices with killer price tags. And Moto G4 Plus had to be special. So I've been reviewing this phone for a couple of days now, and based on my review, it is good for most part. So should you be buying this phone? Well, you'll have to check out the full review to find that out. Now, just like last year's Moto X, Moto G2 this time had two different variants, Moto G4 and Moto G4 Plus. The latter is now available on purchase on Amazon, and we have with us the 32GB variant of this phone. So let's quickly take a look at the specifications of this one. It has a Full HD display, a decent big enough battery, thankfully a gyroscope this time, and different RAM and storage variants. So on paper, this phone looks good. But in the hand, I feel it's a little disappointing because I have mixed feelings about the design of this smartphone. Firstly, it's different from any other Moto G in the past. Here is the Moto G family right from the first to the fourth. And not just from the front, it's even different from the back. Unlike last year's Moto G3 which had hard rubber back, this time you have a smooth matte finish on the back panel. Also, it's a little less curved and more flat than last time, which does compromise on the ergonomics a bit. Yet, it is one of the most compact 5.5 mid-ranges out there to hold. However, Motorola has made some weird designing decisions on this one. First is the placement of the fingerprint scanner. Instead of having a back fingerprint scanner, Motorola has opted for a front one, which I do admire because it means that when your phone is lying on a table or on a bed, you can access it and use it without the need to flip it over. However, they have placed it very awkwardly beneath the display, and it gives you an illusion of a home button, but it's not. It serves no other purpose than being a fingerprint scanner and maybe occasionally calling back the on-screen buttons. However, the fingerprint scanning is exceptional. It's even better than the one on my Note 5. It's accurate, it's fast, and for that reason alone, I might then exempt them from having an awkward button placement. But even then, I have two more issues with the designing of this smartphone. Number one is this microphone, which is visible on the front panel and looks odd to me. Number two is the protruding camera setup that makes the phone wobbly when it's lying on flat surfaces. And while I do regard Motorola for using metal on the sides, I regret to inform you that unlike last year, this time it is not waterproof. The other major change with the design this year is that unlike last year where we had two front-facing speakers, this time we only have one. However, it's loud and gets the job done. Hear for yourself. So overall, the designing of this smartphone is not that impressive, considering that you have likes of Xiaomi Redmi Note 3 and Lenovo Levan S in the market right now. However, the back is still removable and hence replaceable. But what impressed me on this phone is its display. A 5.5-inch display with vibrant colors and great quality overall is surely appealing. And while it's not an AMOLED, the brightness on this one was never a problem, neither indoors nor out in the sun. Plus, you get on this the Moto display, which in my opinion is a step ahead of Samsung's always-on display. For you can obviously see the time when you pick it up, but more importantly, you can see the notifications you got in the meantime. So kudos to Motorola and full marks for designing such a beautiful screen. And now it is time to discuss the performance. It packs on the Snapdragon 617 processor, which I feared to be inferior when compared to Xiaomi Redmi Note 3's Snapdragon 652 processor. However, Motorola's optimization is so damn good that fluidity was never a concern. The phone feels swift and snappy in everything you do with it, opening apps, surfing web, or playing games. In fact, I tried playing some heavy titles on this phone and it handled all of them with absolute ease. Actually, I remember how I did face some lag when I played Modern Combat 5 on the Redmi Note 3, which did stutter occasionally. But on this device, it felt buttery. So in terms of performance, Moto G4 Plus feels superb, and part of the reason for that is the software. It runs Android Marshmallow, which is a great thing considering most of the peers are still stuck on Lollipop. But more importantly, it runs the operating system almost like a Nexus device. It is free from bloat, it has stock look and feel, and it is quick to get updates too. And while it is a good thing to run stock Android, it also means that you don't get many extra features. For instance, you cannot display the battery percentage on the status bar, or you won't get a one-handed mode on this one. But what you do get are the Moto features. Apart from the Moto display, you do get a few more gestures like the chop chop flash, which works better on the G4 than on the G3. Then there is a gesture to mute the phone by turning it over, or silencing it by quickly picking it up. And lastly, I can still open the camera by twisting my wrist twice. Though I think it's useless now, considering that double pressing power button fires up the viewfinder quicker. And since the camera is already open, let's review it too. It comes with a 16 megapixel camera with laser autofocus and face detection autofocus. But for me, the biggest update was the updated camera user interface. First up, you now have the option to use a dedicated shutter button, which was not there before. Next, you also have the Pro mode, with which you can tweak various aspects of the camera. And though you do get to capture in slow-mo, you can't even shoot them in HD resolution. And in fact, even without slow motion, Full HD is the highest resolution you can get on this camera. But the overall quality of pics and clips is decent. It shoots good outdoors, does the job well with HDR, and even indoor shots are decent, but only if you hold your hand still. However, shooting in dark is not very pleasurable. The phone struggles to focus on objects, and that is when the True Tone Flash comes to the rescue. Here is a comparison between the Moto and its peers for you to judge. Turning to the front camera, it is at par with the competition and it performs even better than them in the dark, thanks to this front-facing screen flash feature that is given on this one. Now very quickly, I will touch upon the aspects of this device that are remaining. First is calling. Calling on the smartphone was actually very good. I had no issues whatsoever in terms of making calls or receiving them. Noise cancellation feature is exceptional. In fact, the primary speaker is the earpiece, so the output is very loud, both in terms of in-ear and on loudspeaker mode. Coming to storage now, it has about 25 GB of storage user available out of the 32 GB on board. And if that is not sufficient for you, you can pop in a micro SD card of up to 128 GB of storage. And even if that is not sufficient, then shove in a pen drive. It does support OTG too. Lastly, it is time to discuss the battery life of the smartphone. A 3000 mAh battery should be sufficient on a smartphone like this. And it is. In fact, I used to get around 4 hours of screen on time on average on the smartphone, which is not something great, but decent nonetheless. Plus it charges very quickly. I went from 0 to full in around 90 minutes. Though in our standard video loop test, it lasted for around 10 hours, which is less than what Xiaomi Redmi Note 3 scored, but that is expected considering it has a way bigger battery. But what I did not like is that despite having Android Marshmallow on board, the phone does not support the DOS battery saving features that come with it. So now that I've covered all major aspects of this device, it is time for my verdict. But before I dive into it, I would want to tell you the things you would be missing out on the Moto G4 Plus. Firstly, you don't have 4K video recording. Secondly, the slow motion video capturing is rather underwhelming. Thirdly, there is no optical image stabilization. Next, you do not have an NFC. Then you do not get waterproof protection. Neither do you have an IR blaster. So, is it worth buying? Well, for me, yes. Firstly, it's great that you can get a smartphone like this for under Rs 15,000 in India and under $300 in the international market. It has got great software, it has got promise of quick updates, and it performs well in all aspects that we have discussed. Secondly, while you can argue that you can get better specs on, say, a Chinese phone, a cheaper Chinese phone, I know a lot of people who would prefer the brand name over a spec sheet. And that too, a brand name of a company that was once responsible for creating the world's first mobile phone. Say hello, Moto. That is all I had to say about the new Moto G4 Plus. If you have any questions or need any recommendations, post them in the comment box below. But before you do that, do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I am Sid and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.